Well, here we are again. This time around I thought we would revisit the British invasion. That seems to be an ongoing thing here. So this time around we have a Sound City 50 Plus that customer brought in. It's a new acquisition for him, but he wanted to bring it in here and have me take a look at it. He also mentioned it had a few issues, like a really bad noise floor and a few other things he wanted me to check out. So anyway, there it is. It's on the bench. So let's get on with it then. We'll spin it around here and take a look at the back. Okay, first thing I see here is the back panel's on backwards, inside out. So that makes me wonder just how in-depth this checkover was. So we'll get this back panel off and see what happens. Okay, we have a couple Ruby EL34s. One of the first things we always do is check the fuse holders to see what the fuses have in them, because you never know. Okay, those are so oxidized I can't read them. So I've cleaned those up. I don't like the feel of that. I wonder. Oh yeah. Okay. The first thing any English amp owner usually learns, hopefully not the hard way. We learned this thing in the 70s. The quickest way to blow one of these British amps up is to have a bad connection on your speaker selector here. This is really poor. I mean, there's hardly no grip there at all. So we're going to start cleaning a few things up here, and I'll get back to you. Okay, to give you a better idea here what we were talking about earlier, see how loose this is. This is really bad. This is accident waiting to happen. The power supply, when we're not so concerned about, I mean, yes, it needs to be tightened up, but this one over here is the one that will blow your amp up. So just a general look over here, first things we see, like I say, I mentioned, got a set of Ruby tubes in it. Someone's noted here, beside the plate current ratings on these two tubes, they're supposed to be 32 plate rating. They've marked 36 on this one and 40 some on this one. 46. Have to see what happens there. We've got two members of the Partridge family here, I believe. We've got Keith and Danny. So, somebody's replaced the two filter caps here, and the other one over here. Those are all modulus amplification capacitors from England, so those were probably changed before this came across the pond. Let's just flip it over here and see what else we've got. Okay, well, seems as though there's been a bit of buggery afoot. So, yay. This cracks me up. We'll get to this in a minute. That is, I said we'll get to that in a minute. Over here we have the obligatory vintage knot in the AC power cord. Been some stuff changed here. We have our dual pair of bias adjustment pots. Not a big fan of that, but it's stock. We've got a bunch of replacement caps here. Apparently someone has done a cap job on it. They've used some pretty good stuff. They used some pretty cheap stuff. So we'll see what's going on there. But they've disconnected the ground switch. We've mentioned before, a lot of guys are scared to death of these quote unquote death cap ground switches. In the real world out there, sometimes you actually need it if you're playing somewhere other than your bedroom. It is to take noise off the AC lines and get rid of hum. And a lot of times when you're out there, those that were old enough to be gigging in bars and stuff years ago understand my philosophy here, where I believe that in a lot of cases most of the wiring done in clubs and bars was done with someone with a tab at the bar, so you never knew what you was getting into. So sometimes the ground switches actually helped you out. But anyway, we're going to get over here. Like I said, this cracked me up first thing. We have two dual section 100 microfarad filter caps. I'll check the schematic to make sure, but I'm pretty sure that these are supposed to be wired in parallel each stage, which would give you 200 microfarads on this cap, 200 microfarads on this cap. Then when you put them in series, it would drop that back in half to 100. So at this point what we've got is 100 and 100 in series, which gives you 50, which means that we have half the filtering on the main filter that the factory had originally. We'll check into that. I could be wrong. We'll see. Want to bet? So anyway, we're going to look into some more stuff here, but this, like I said, this is the first look over on this amp. So we see what we're up against. So the first order of business here is, before I do anything, is tighten up the impedance selector. The fuses I mentioned earlier, I did a very liberal cleaning with a wire brush and got the fuses cleaned up where I could read them. They're actually the right value. But I'm going to clean the fuse holders out because there's a lot of corrosion inside those. So, okay. Let the games begin. So, clue you in here on something. My plan of attack for these fuse holders is kind of unorthodox. I use this a lot. If you don't know what this is actually a gun brush for like a .22 pistol. It works to clean jacks and stuff out really well too. So kind of scrub this up in here real good. Round and round. Of course, you want to make sure the amp's not plugged in, it's discharged. Of course, I've already taken care of all that. And here's the plug. Anyways, alright, so we clean these out really good. Then clean them out a little bit with a little bit of alcohol. That will dry off while we're doing the rest of it. And that will take care of that side of the fuse holder. And we're going to do the same thing with these. Oh yeah. So it takes care of that. That stuff can dry there. Now, we'll turn our attention to these selectors. This one is an original. We may clean it up and move it over here to the speaker selector because, like I said, that's the most important thing to deal with. It's a little bit oxidized too. We're going to clean it up. But like I said, this is so loose, this is just an accident waiting to happen. So whenever we use it, this is actually probably a Marshall selector. And we've got a few things here we've got to worry about. This little nib here, here, and here does not allow it to seat well. So we need to deal with that. I'm going to file those little things off so it'll seat a little better. That'll help. Plus we're going to try to tighten up these pins. To show you the plan here, I'm using my handy dandy X-Acto knife and going down in here and retensioning these like you would with the tube socket. Just very carefully catch it on the spring side and twist it and squeeze it back together. Oh yeah, that one's much better. In fact, if you look in here, you can see the pins moving where it's gripped. All right, moving on to the impedance selector. All right, we've got this one taken care of as well. In fact, you can see how tight that is. What I'm going to do after I have lunch is pull my schematic and stuff out and see what we've got. I want to double check the color codes on the output transformer here to make sure that it lines up with what they've got marked out here. At this point, it looks like the window is supposed to point toward whatever number it is for the impedance. But we want to make absolutely sure. And this 100-volt line thing is a throwback to the old PAs. This is something you never want to use on a speaker cabinet. We won't get into that right now, but you don't even want to even think you've got this. But we want to make sure that the 16 ohm, 8 ohm, and 4 ohm is where it's supposed to be, and certainly not connected to this. So we're going to have some lunch and get back to this. Well, we have verified the impedance selector wiring, and I've put in a little gold dot right here. It is in line with the window. So even though these don't line up properly in order, they line up. So that's correct. All right, now on to our next move here. We seem to have had some changes made here. This looks original. This is a British resistor. Down here, I assume that these are 1 ohm resistors off of the cathode to ground. We're going to look into that and check some of this stuff out here. I noticed something over here. Talk about this cap thing. We've got a loose cap, which wouldn't be a big thing, except for right here. Oops. Except for right here is our bolt that connects the ground of the cap and the ground for the high tension fuse to the chassis. That's not good. So we've got to deal with that too. That's going to be minor. But I'm going to consult the schematic here and check on this capacitor thing. Still no takers on betting me? Well, looky here. We have a 200 microfarad capacitor here, a 200 microfarad capacitor here in series. Imagine that. So I will start doing some bolt tightening and some rewiring. So let's get you caught up here. Spent a little time. I've just been working away. So first thing I did is I went through and tightened up all the transformer bolts, especially the ones that had grounds connected to them, like this one, squirrel. So as I was saying, first thing I did here was go through and tighten up all the transformer bolts, especially the ones that had grounds on them, like this one, and this one. Then I proceeded to rewire the power supply capacitors as they were supposed to be. So now I have the two sections paralleled, then series, to give us our 100 microfarads. While I was doing that, I also changed the divider resistors here on them, the 220K resistors. The original ones were carbon comp. I'm not real fond of carbon comp and power supplies because they crackle and pop and make noise. Those were within tolerance resistance wise. One of them was low, one of them was high, about 10,000 ohms, not a lot, but had reasons for changing them anyway. So as I'm looking around here in this amplifier, I'm finding lots of little British isms. The British amps, you never know what you're going to find. So I'm finding a lot of little odd things here. We've got two resistors, one on each output tube here from cathode to ground. Now in most cases that's like a 1 ohm to a 10 ohm resistor that you can measure current across, or just a little bit of lift above ground for the tube. What I find odd in this amp is this one is 22 ohms, this one is 68 ohms, and that matches the schematic. So I found that odd. Another weird thing I found were where many amplifiers have a dedicated screen supply. This one just takes two 1K resistors right off the tap to the output transformer and drops that right on the screens. It doesn't have a resistor in between the high voltage or a choke and another capacitor. It just dumps it right on there. So, like I said, I've been looking around here a little bit and found a few other little things to be concerned about that I'm looking over. I'm just about to fire it up here and see what we've got. So I'm going to get on with that, and I'll catch you up in a few. Alright, well, we've got some more time in here. We actually have the amp biased. Had to get a little creative here. A bit of solder. And what I actually had to do is unhook the plate leads from the tube on each one of the output tubes and put a meter between it to measure the current, because, well, like I say, with this thing, it's almost kind of sort of running sort of triode mode. Sort of. I don't know what they're doing. Anyway, then to make matters even worse, we had the dual diddle pots for the bias. And in this amplifier, like I said, I don't really care for the dual pots, but in this amp you have to have it. With the different values of cathode resistors on here, this amp biases up and the hum goes away. Otherwise you have a nasty hum if you have the tubes biased up the same. They actually had to bias up about 6 milliamps a piece different to not have any hum in the output stage. So you basically set the one for the bias that you want, the highest drawing tube, and then you vary the other one to get rid of the hum. Otherwise it's very noisy. So we've got the output stage taken care of. We've got the main power supply taken care of. We've got the power amp taken care of. We also found out that there was a ECC 83, aka 12AX7, in the phase inverter instead of an ECC 81, aka 12AT7, in the phase inverter. So, took care of that. Now, we've also cleaned the sensitivity switch, which on the schematic is shown as a gain switch. It was so oxidized it didn't even conduct. It wouldn't work. So I cleaned it, got it working. Somebody's been fiddling around here with the resistor values for it to change the boost amount. It's a lot like a boost circuit in an orange in the old oranges. Let me clarify that. So they've actually changed this to have a different boost, so I'm going to put that back to the stock value in a few. But I've got the amp running, and we've got to do a few more things. I've got to clean up this power supply cap and change this resistor. We've still got some residual hiss and crackling in the preamp, so we're going to get rid of this guy, and then we're going to continue on with the preamp. But we're coming along here. All right, well, let's get you caught up. This has been another one of those little unexpected detours. But when you're dealing with a red-headed stepchild of English descent, man, these guys really missed the ball on this. Anyway, I have fixed a lot of things here. I've got the noise down quite a bit. This is as quiet as I can get. The amp is cranked at this point. One of the things I found to get rid of some of the noise was relocate the ground for the bias control here. It was actually tied up here to the preamp ground, so we got some buzz there. So relocating it properly took care of that. I also moved a couple parts here. The cathode resistors for this stage was actually grounded over here to the bias ground. So it's never a good idea to have power supply grounds and audio grounds tied together, which is another problem up here in the front. They're actually using shielded cable from the front here back into the circuit, but they're also using the shield for the ground connection on the pots. I would be here for weeks deciphering all this and getting it taken care of. This is probably about as good as we can do. Another problem we've got here, if you notice, this front of the chassis is floating. This is not part of the chassis. It actually is pretty flimsy. So there's actually no shielding for anything up in here, which all of your tone control amplifier stuff, which this does not have a tone stack. All this right through here is actually circuitry for the tone controls. So this is about as good as we can get this. I think we've just about covered everything we've done. I've shortened up leads as much as possible and stuff and rerouted things and tried to get it as quiet as possible. So we have made a huge amount of progress with it, but these Dallas Arbiter amplifiers are not laid out the best. So anyway, we're going to get it back together here and check it out sound wise. Okay, so here we go. That's the normal channel tone controls all halfway up. On neck pickup. Okay, there's your normal channel. Brilliant channel. That was just to show you the range of the controls. Like I say, these do not have a tone stack in them. These actually have a dedicated treble, bass, and mid amplifier stages. So, a little different. So there you go, Sound City 50 Plus. Till next time, see you later.